leaving us with this unsolvable equation. Robert! 11.
11. Finally.
I did it! That's what I said! 走了。
Welcome, and thank you for taking this course. Hiltz & Associates is the company behind Dental Fraudbusters, dentistry's most popular fraud protection website. Next, in our typical case of dental embezzlement, our employee becomes encouraged by how easy it is to steal.
In our typical case, the employee has now decided to steal. Most embezzlers will steal a small amount at first and then wait a while to see if the dentist becomes suspicious. When the theft goes unnoticed, encouragement and confidence builds, and our embezzler will steal again. With each successive theft, the embezzler's confidence builds and they steal more frequently and for larger amounts. In fact, most are surprised by how easy it is to steal from the practice. It doesn't take long before stealing becomes just another part of their job. But there is an upper limit to how much an employee can steal and it go unnoticed. And that limit is called Hiltz's axiom. Now, dishonest employees don't want to get caught, so they will avoid stealing too much and cause the practice to go bankrupt. Yes, some practices have gone bankrupt, but again, those are not the typical cases. So when an employee steals 5% of revenue or less, it's typically going to fly under the radar screen. If a practice collects $1 million a year, that can amount to $50,000 in theft. Now, Hiltz's axiom applies to general dentistry only. Dental specialists can expect to see that number double. Now, let's look at an actual case where Hiltz's axiom was observed. I'm going to show you a graph from an actual case involving theft of cash payments, which is a very common scheme. Now, this embezzler began stealing when she was 56 years old, and over the next 8 years stole in excess of $160,000, and the actual loss was likely over $200,000. Now, the left axis is the percentage of total revenue, and the bottom axis represents the years from 2012 to 2019. And as we look at each one of the years, you can see that the amount increases each successive year. So the stealing is going up and it's increasing until it reaches a maximum of about 4.88% in 2018. And then in 2019, it dipped down a little bit because the owner began becoming suspicious. That's why he hired me. And that caused the dishonest employee to take less cash. So what are some of the other common schemes that are used to steal from a dental practice? Now, here are some of the most common schemes that I see in typical cases of dental embezzlement. And remember, this is, 8 out of 10 cases, 9 out of 10 cases that I would consider to be typical. Now, marked in red are the ones that are most common. Cash is tempting to anyone, and to a dishonest employee, it is a magnet. Most cases will involve some amount of cash being stolen. It's easy to conceal, hard to trace. Check tampering is often common. This involves theft of company checks or stealing checks that come in from the insurance companies for work that you performed. Check tampering can result in huge losses. Payroll schemes. If you give someone the ability to issue payroll checks to employees, they can create ghost employees, overpay people, overpay themselves. Phony refunds to patients or insurance companies. Now, this involves a refund by check or by credit card, which the employee will convert financially to their own benefit. Healthcare fraud. This one is extremely concerning. This is when an employee will submit claims for work that wasn't performed. When the insurance company adjudicates the claim and sends the payment to the practice, the employee then takes that payment and then converts it into cash for their own benefit. And expense padding. This is going out and buying things for themselves on your dime. Back to school, they go to Staples or Business Depot and they charge up stuff on your account. Or if you have an Amazon account, They'll order items on Amazon and have them delivered to their own home. Now, let's look at an example of check tampering where a dentist lost over $500,000.
New at 5. Police are looking for an office manager suspected of embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars from her boss. The victim is a prominent Buckhead dentist. New at 5, live in Cobb County, Channel 2's consumer investigator Jim Strickland found a major bank is accused of allowing the thefts to go on for years. Jim?
Jovita, we'll talk about this first. There's a warrant out for 40-year-old Erica Cameron. The dentist who employed her for more than 10 years figures he'll never get his money out of her, but he believes that Wells Fargo ought to pay up. In this lawsuit, he alleges that the bank's ATMs were a key to the theft.
And they're tying up everything with the legal system and trying to smother me.
Dr. Bob File walked me through reams of paper documenting the case of office manager Erica Cameron and the bank Cameron and File both used, Wells Fargo.
When she was caught red-handed by Wells Fargo Bank, calling me and telling me that she had been depositing checks made out to my business into her personal account.
File says he was busy as a clinician while he had Cameron handle the office. How much money are they sure is missing?
North of $630,000, and then she just went to the ATM and deposited it into the ATM.
These are 5 of the more than 500 checks File says Cameron fed to Wells Fargo ATMs. This one's nearly $2,500. The endorsement is for deposit into File's account, but File says Cameron signed it and deposited it into her account. File complains a human teller would have questioned the transactions, but they sailed through via automation. We went looking for Cameron at her last known address.
Hello, Miss Cameron?
No answer.
She ended up walking out of the office before the police came, so she hasn't been caught.
File spent 10 months and 6 figures in legal fees fighting Wells Fargo.
But part of me says, wrong is wrong.
Now, a spokesperson for Wells Fargo says they cannot comment on an ongoing lawsuit. I can tell you this, in this affidavit, a private investigator swore that he looked for Ms. Cameron for 2 months with no luck in finding her. Reporting live, Cobb County, Marietta, Jim Strickland, Channel 2.
Now, you're probably asking yourself, how could she deposit checks into an ATM for so many years without being caught? And the reference in the video talked about the automated check clearing systems. Well, thanks to machines like the IBM 3890 and its successors, checks are digitally processed. No human being will look at them unless the check is kicked out for an exception, and this happens when there's an NSF or non-sufficient funds in the account, or the check cannot be properly scanned by the optical readers. Well, guess what? Insurance checks are properly formatted. They fly through the electronic scanners, and insurance checks never bounce. Why wasn't Wells Fargo liable to repay? It has to do with Article 4 of the Uniform Commercial Code. Article 4 has a clause to hold business owners liable for losses involving theft of company checks if the business owner does not comply with the reporting requirements. Now, in my other course, I discuss this article of the Uniform Commercial Code because it's important for business owners to understand how banks operate and what the business owner's responsibility is as an account holder. A typical case of dental embezzlement can go on for months or years before they stop. So what are the circumstances that will cause a dishonest employee to stop stealing?